Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast, where we talk about all things 3DO, the 3DO company, the console, and everything in between. I am Bill, and this is Thrak. How you doing, Thrak?
I'm doing all right, Bill. I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I've started running again recently, so that's been fun.
Oh, that's
Getting
good.
back into try. I want to get back into shape this summer, so I've been trying to do at least 15 minutes of running a day.
Do you do the thing where you say like walk on the treadmill and just play a game for like an hour?
So what I do is I bike on. I have a stationary bike, and I'll play like Tetris on that for like an hour. And then I'll do
Hmm.
my 15-minute run after, and I'll usually just put like a music video on or something in the background to distract me.
Sounds good. Yeah. Usually when I'm working out, like say if I'm playing a game, I'll just like when the cutscene happens is when I'll do some like reps or some sit ups or whatever. So
Hmm.
and that's all cool. Yeah, I've been at the racetrack. I've been playing good old Forza Horizon, the first one. Um, I think I'm like halfway done. Like the game progression's at like 53%, but like 10 and a half hours in it. And it's great.
Hmm.
Really enjoy it. I'll probably end up like finishing all the races, trying to get all the cars. I can't get every achievement because a lot of them are locked behind online stuff and those servers are long dead. But it's a
Speaking
great
of
game.
speaking of racing, your mom got the perfect Mother's Day gift this weekend.
Yes, yes. So my mom, she likes NASCAR and her favorite driver is Mr. Brad Keselowski. And he had like I think it was like a 2+ year streak where he hadn't won a race, which was around the time he changed like ownership to be a part owner of his car. Had a lot of issues with it. I think a lot of the issue was just him trying to figure out the business side. So it was kind of him like not thinking about the racing side, but he's had a lot of better finishes this year. Like he's finished second quite a few times. Could have won a race, I think, earlier in the year if he didn't say like get in accidents or whatever. But he finally won one to last time. And when you told me that happened, because I knew he was running second, my mom was behind because she always like tapes and watches it later. And I saw she had like 30 laps to go, so I just sat there and watched it with her. So that was good to see. That was good for her to finally get that win. And the ending was pretty solid too.
It was a cool finish. Like the two guys wrecked each other at the end, and then Brad just like kind of was like, "See ya."
Yeah, and Busher like went up to Reddick and he's just like, dude, what the fuck? You tried to wreck me, you fuck, And the Reddick kept his helmet on because I think he thought Busher was gonna punch him.
So I think
Um,
what happened was like because I was rewatching that. I think what happened is he actually legitimately had just gotten out of the car and didn't even have time, and because there's video clips of Bushard, he's just fucking coming.
oh,
Like
he books it. It's amazing.
I don't think he had time because if you watch the whole interaction, he takes his helmet off in the middle of it, so he wasn't really like afraid because
Well,
he
he was probably thinking at some point he's like, maybe I'll keep this on just in case. But as they kept talking, it probably cooled down. And he's like, okay, I'm okay.
well, I
So,
mean, he took the blame right away. Like he didn't try to
oh
like
yeah, yeah. Because I think it's Busher thought that Reddick tried to wreck him. And Reddick said, and I think Reddick was correct watching it back. Reddick's like, I tried to go past him and I couldn't. So as I was like coming back, he just kind of slid into him in
this
like
is
just
a
the right way. But I could see why Busher would think that.
I can see what. Well, the thing with Busher is, I know why he was upset because he literally the last week literally lost to the closest finish in NASCAR history.
Yeah, the photo finish. Which I mean, even though he lost to that, like that's in the history books, man. Like you're
It is.
part of the closest finish in NASCAR history. It doesn't matter that you won or lost. Like people will always be like, "Oh, who were the cars in that photo finish?" And his name will always be there. So
True.
he made history even without winning. Like winning, yes, would be nice in the short term, but like 10 years from now, he's probably not even going to remember that. He's going to be like, yeah, I was part of that big moment. People ask me about it all the time. You know, like that's his legacy.
Yeah. No, I mean, and he's a really good driver. I mean, he was the fastest Ford arguably last year and all
Yeah.
throughout the entire series.
And
Like,
Ford finally got a win with Brad.
I know they've been struggling hard this year. I think
Apparently.
the thing with Brad to me is like he left Penske because he wanted to be an owner and he basically bought into the Roush team. And the Roush team is one of those teams that was really big back in the day, and they really fell on hard times. Like they couldn't keep up with the modern stuff. And Brad comes in, he basically rebuilds the team from scratch. Like basically throws everything out and starts over. it took him a couple of years, but it's paying off, and to see him finally win, I think shows how much work he's done to that team.
In sports terms, we call that a rebuild.
Hmm.
And rebuilds can take a while to finally get there. And I'm sure the win it it helps, I think, legitimize the move in his eyes, because maybe there were points along the road where he's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that because he was struggling so much. But I think that win helps legitimize them a little bit more. And it shows to everybody that, oh, Brad can still do it. Like he's not a has-been or anything like that. So
It says a lot too, considering that six car before Brad stepped into it had been notoriously just like all over the place.
yeah.
Like the last time the six car won was 2011, and then
Ooh.
the last time it won on a non super speedway track was like 2005. So
Wow.
it's been through the ringer ever since like Mark Martin stepped out of it. So
Yeah. But who knows? Maybe this will be the momentum that Brad needs to start winning again.
I think his
Like
spotter
much, much more.
said in an interview that like he's finally gotten over like the whole like he realizes he can win now. That's out of his head now. So
Yeah.
now like the floodgates aren't could open, and this could be the start of something crazy.
Oh yeah. I don't know if he'll ever repeat 2012, but it's possible.
He might. I mean, he's had really good years. Like 2020, he was one of the best drivers that year. He just the format kind of makes it all up to one race. So
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, back to Forza Horizon. It's a great game. I love it. What I like about one is that it's not massively huge.
mhm.
Like it's just big enough to get the open feeling, but it's not so much that it's overwhelming like some of the later Horizon games are. So I've put like 10 and a half hours into it, and I've about 50%, I think a little bit more than that, completed it. So I'll probably keep working on that through the week and get it done. And it's been nice because work's been kind of not great. So like I'll just come here, turn it on, and just kind of zone out for a few hours and just kind of zoom through Colorado, and it helps clear the brain. So,
Mm.
and also before that, I beat Immortality,
Oh,
the
nice.
the the latest Sam Barlow game, and I posted a review of it on some of the other discords in my SuperPod blog, and it is probably the best game I've played this year. It's a me ass game because her story was great. I still need to play Telling Lies, but Immortality definitely feels like the best representation of what he's trying to do
Mm.
with this like FMV, like using FMV in a more sort of modern way. Like Immortality is probably the best FMV game ever made, I think. Like the acting is incredible, the story is just fascinating and engaging. And there's little hints of gameplay, I think that's what I'll say. And it goes a lot of interesting places. There's a heavy David Lynch influence on it,
Mm.
very. And I don't know if you've played it or not, but basically you're following this one um actress named Marissa, who she was like in a soap commercial, and she got spotted in that, and then she stars in this like one big movie that didn't get released, but then her and the director of photography from that movie start working on another movie called Minsky, which also didn't get released for well, you'll see. And so there's a break, like a long gap, because that was the first movie was 68, the second was 70, and then there's a huge break, and then in 99 she comes back to do a third movie that doesn't get released either, and then she disappears after that. And the whole game is you get one clip, and then in the clips you can pause at like any frame and then click on like a specific thing, and it'll give you a new clip to look at. And
Oh,
so
okay.
you spend the game like piecing together. I think it's like well over 200 clips from like the movies, like like actual like clips from the movies, like behind the scenes stuff, interviews, like talk show appearances, that kind of stuff. And there's more going on beneath the surface.
Mm.
And when I finished it, I did have to read a story synopsis to be like, okay, what the fuck was that? And read through it and went, oh, okay, that's what was happening. Okay. So
Yeah.
it all makes sense. And is he's cooking. Sam Barlow is fucking cooking. Like it was a 10 for me. I
Nice.
loved it. Don't go for all the achievements because it was a nightmare at the end. Because there was one clip I didn't have, and I was scrubbing through everything to find. I eventually did find it, but it was a pain in the ass. So, but it was great. I don't know where he goes from here. If he wants to do another game in this style or do something completely different, I don't know. But I definitely need to play Telling Lies at this point because I need to see that connecting thread. But yeah, Immortality, play it, everybody, love it. It gets the Thrax seal of approval.
Nice. I'm so hyped for the 1,000 Year Door release coming out soon.
That's next week, isn't it?
Shit. I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because Hellblade 2 is the 21st, so next week at the time we're recording this, and then the 23rd, I believe, is 1,000 Year Door remake. So
I cannot wait.
It's going to be a busy week for me because I'm playing both those fucking games because I'm excited for both. So
the 1,000 Year Door is, I think Bowser's Inside Story is the best Mario RPG ever made. But 1,000 Year Door is so close. Like,
hold on. The copy I got as a kid.
Nice.
I had to pull it out. Like, I remember getting this. I saw this at the GameStop in like 2005, something like that. And it was, it was 05 or 06. It says bestseller on it, but it's not Player's Choice.
See, I have the awful Player's Choice version with the yellow.
Oh, yeah. And of course, it's CIB.
Nice.
It's one of the most valuable games I have. And I've beaten this copy at least 2 or 3 times. Like, I love this game. I know this game pretty well. It is like, this was the game, one of the few games that made me go, oh, RPGs can be fun.
Yeah. See, that was the Mario and Luigi series for me.
That's fair. And I didn't play those until much, much later.
See, I didn't have a GameCube, so I was stuck with those.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, they're both excellent series.
Oh, absolutely.
They both fall off a cliff after a while, but
after the third entry.
Well, Mario and Luigi not as drastically. Paper Mario, oof.
Yeah. Like 64 is great. 1,000 Year Door is a masterpiece.
I am a strong Super Paper Mario defender.
It has some good things about it. It's not as good as the first 2, but I think it stands on its own.
It has the best story in the series. Like, I will defend that forever.
Yeah, fantastic story. The weird mixture of 2D and 3D works better than you'd think. There's a lot to like about it. It's just the whole like action RPG kind of combat in that game, like jumping on a Goomba and not immediately killing it in a Mario game
just feels weird.
It feels so wrong. But it's better than Sticker Star. Sticker Star is trash.
That is a low. That is such a low bar.
And then there's also Color Splash on Wii U. I never played that. I never played it. I watched Arlo's review of it.
But like as a puzzle adventure game, it's fine, but as an RPG, it's trash.
Yeah, I watched Arlo's review of it. Which is a pretty comprehensive review of it. And from what I saw of it, I'm like, it would probably be fine, but it would leave you feeling kind of empty because there's not a lot there. Like, it's a concept that could work in a different game. I'm not quite sure. Like Origami King. I have Origami. I'm not going to pull out Origami King. Origami King I thought it was okay. Like,
it's a step in the right direction.
The game is gorgeous. The writing is really good. The like exploring, finding all the toads, a lot of that stuff. Like, everything that isn't the combat is great, in my opinion. It's the combat that really lets the game down. Like the whole ring system, it's a neat idea, but the more did you play Origami King?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, I put like 40, 50 hours into it. Anyway, the ring combat, like, it's a neat idea, but when you play the game, you realize, oh, they didn't really have enough ideas for it. It was just an idea. But by the end of the game, it's like, oh yeah, they don't really develop this in a way that a Nintendo game would develop it. You know what I mean?
I have a strong feeling because of how successful the Mario RPG remake was, and I have a very strong suspicion that the Paper Mario re-release is going to do very well. Maybe that'll finally kick Nintendo in the ass to be like, yo, people like RPGs.
Well, they know people like RPGs. Like the Xenoblade games do really well.
True. They just don't want to make a Mario
Fire Emblem
RPG.
does really well.
True.
So, well, I think maybe we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But
Well, their excuse for the longest time was they were always like, well, the Mario and Luigi series is the RPG series, which pissed everyone off.
yeah, because that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, yeah, now it's even more like bad because that franchise is dead, which sucks, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, yeah. Nintendo had a hand in that series' death. And then yeah, Paper Mario is just kind of coasted for a good long time, and yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm here for for this guy. I'll have both of them. Next week I will have the Switch one in. Well, not next week, but yeah, I'll have the Switch one here. So, but I'll probably play through and beat Hellblade 2 first. That'll probably be a quick play, like maybe 10 hours, and then I will get back. I will be playing Paper Mario again, which is a good feeling. It's good. It's good to play that one again because I remember when I first got it, I had no idea it was an RPG. Even looking at the back, like if you didn't know, you wouldn't think it's an RPG. Um, and when I was a kid, I was like, man, all this like turn-based combat, like this shit is weird, man. But I'll deal with it because it's Mario, you know. But I got into it, you know. Like I eventually got into it. So, but yeah,
I
my
think it's
first.
insane. Like one of the best worlds in that game is the wrestling ring, and it's literally just a bunch of fights.
I love that. I love the train, like the
murder mystery
train is great. When you meet Bombery, is that his name?
Bombery.
The bomb on the island. You deliver the letter to his wife. The Pianta Mafia, like that stuff's fantastic.
The
even
entire.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say the dark world with all the fucking like identity crisis shit. That whole level is fucking amazing.
Yeah, and the whole storyline with Peach and the computer like falling in love with Peach. It's one of the few times that it's implied that Peach is naked.
Oh yeah, she takes her dress off and you run around
naked.
But she's invisible.
Yes. Which is very raunchy for Nintendo. And also, where? Oh, she's not on the cover. That's crazy. She's not on the cover. Vivian.
Oh yeah, they're actually gonna go into the.
They're doing a proper translation of it, and I guarantee you, it's gonna piss some people off. Because they're not gonna know. They're gonna be like, "Oh, they're doing this woke thing," and then people are gonna be like, "Bro, she was always that." For those of you who don't know, in Paper Mario, you run into a ghost named Vivian. She's part of a gang of other like sister ghosts. And in the original Japanese version, you find out that she is trans. And in the American and I believe the European translations, she is not. They take that out.
Yeah, they just don't even reference it. It's just completely.
Yep, it's like the Birdo. It's like a Birdo situation.
2003, I get it, just the time frame, but nowadays it makes sense to just do it the right way.
But even then, it's like, I don't know, I could be wrong on this, but I feel like in 03, 04, if there was that, I don't think people would be so freaked out by it.
I don't even think it would have been it would have freaked people out. I think it was more just I think it would have just been confusing because like it wasn't super known at the time.
It wasn't a mainstream thing like it is now.
Yeah, I think it just it was more of a they didn't want to confuse kids.
Yeah, probably just because it's like such a weird thing to do, and bringing that up maybe in 2003 wouldn't have been best because the attitudes people had towards that and back then were not great, but it was mostly people just being like, I don't know.
It's also not exactly like flat out said. It's more subtle. I mean, it's kind of derogatory the way it's portrayed in game, but it's also not exactly direct either. It's kind of just a thing where I get why they took it out, but nowadays it just makes more. Now that people know about it, I understand why they would put it in.
Yeah, just throw it in there. Why not do a proper translation? We'll see probably Grums or somebody get mad about it on Twitter and not know.
People who have never played the game and have no intention of playing the game are going to get angry for no reason. So
yeah, honestly, Grums feels like that kind of guy who like doesn't play games because he's too busy on Twitter talking about how mad he is.
Probably,
you know. So, but yeah, it'll be a good game. I mean, it's always been a good game. I don't know. I don't know how they'd fuck it up. I know some people are mad it's 30 instead of 60, but I'm like, it's a fucking RPG. Who gives a shit? Um,
Oh, the frame rate.
yeah,
I mean, well, is it going to make that much of a difference?
it's an RPG. Like I know it has the action commands, but they're not. It's not fucking Dark Souls. They're not that picky. Okay, like and Nintendo is so good at optimizing 30 frames. You wouldn't even know it. Like Kirby in the Forgotten Land is 30 frames, and it's the smoothest 30 frame game I've ever played. You wouldn't even think it's 30. So as long as the input lag is next to 0, it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's honestly why they're probably doing 30 because they don't want to risk the Switch not being able to handle it.
Well, the issue people have is the GameCube version is 60. That's why.
That's incredibly common with GameCube ports, though. Like, because like the Tales of Symphonia, like every re-release of that game is capped at 30.
But that's because it's based on the PS3 version, which is based on the PS2 version, which the frame rate was cut in half.
Mm-hmm. But most people don't realize that, and they get mad about it.
Yeah, like if they did a Switch port of say F-Zero GX, and that was running at 30 instead of 60, I would be mad about that. Because that game kind of needs to be in 60. It's that game still to this day. Ooh, put that shit in Dolphin at 4K. Ooh, so good, so good.
Rip your hair out because it's so fucking cheap at times,
but it's so fun. It's got such a great soundtrack and it whizzes by like God fucking damn it.
It also has mid 2000s Sega voice acting and it's hilarious.
Oh yes. Sega was cooking back then.
I still love that line of Captain Falcon when he gets like pulled out of the bar. He's like, "Where are you taking me?" It's like who thought that? Who approved of that?
Yeah, video game voice acting was not. Was barely a thing in 2005.
Yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, that'll be great. I'm excited for Hellblade 2. That's gonna be great. I know people aren't high on Xbox right now, and for good reason. With the whole studio shutdown thing. We didn't talk about that last week, did we?
We covered it last week.
Okay, yeah. God, it's been that long already. And I get it. Some people are worried about Ninja Theory. I think Ninja Theory will be fine. Hellblade 2, I imagine will be a very good game. What's funny is one of the dudes in one of our Discords, Artful Scruff or Scuff or whatever, like he loved Hellblade 1, but he refuses to play 2 because he's like, I don't know, like because to him the idea of a sequel seems pointless from where the story ended in Hellblade 1. And I could see that, but I view it as I need to know where they're going though. Like how do they follow that up? So
yeah,
we shall see. So I will be playing it, and put on your headphones when you play it, kids.
Not 100%. I gotta play that one again. The original Hellblade.
Great game. Have all the achievements for it. I loved it. It was a great experience. I thought it was gonna be like a horror game, and it's not really. But it's creepy. Like Immortality. It's not scary, but it is creepy. Speaking of creepy, we need to talk about Army Men, don't we?
Yes, Army Men. The
beginning the beginning of a sub-series. Audio listeners, he held up like maybe 25% of the Army Men games, which is like 30 of them. Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Keep in mind too, most of these games came out in the span of 3 years.
It blew my mind because one day after a pod we were just chatting and we were talking about Army Men, and then I looked up the list of games and I was surprised at how many games they shoved out or released, to be nicer, in a span of what, from like 97 to like 2001. Like it's crazy.
3DO's time with the franchise was 1998 to 2003.
And in that time, there was what, like 100 games?
There was at
something
least
like
20,
that.
At least like 20 or so.
Good God, man.
So interesting fact. This is the first episode of the show that we're doing that's covering something post-console 3DO.
It was about time.
So we're officially into. We haven't covered the official like transition from console to third party yet, but we're officially in the period of time now where 3DO went full third party. They tried to do a Sega before Sega, to much less success.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
do
think I
you?
count. I think it's like 20 games
Yeah, it's
in 4 years. Like that's insane.
yeah. On there's so I always joke saying that Army Men went from 3DO's flagship series and it turned into their sinking ship really fast.
Yeah, it was clear they had something that was kind of cool that people liked, and then they just rode that wave way too hard.
Well, it was 3DO was so post console 3DO, the company really kind of changed because what I loved about the console era of 3DO was they were really creative and they did a lot of interesting things. Army
I
when it
mean,
came
the concept of Army Men is interesting.
well, I want to get into the whole idea behind how they created the series. It's just like before we get into that, 3DO's third party publisher era, it's like they were so creatively bankrupt at times where it's like they'd find like one thing that worked and then they'd do the Activision method of milk it till it's dead and then keep milking it.
But at least Activision, well, say with like the Call of Duty series, there's just like one a year. But like, I mean, hell, I watched a video from a while ago about the Guitar Hero series. Uh, it was a club, I believe, did it on YouTube. Y'all should watch it. He plays every Guitar Hero game, goes through the whole thing. It's a fantastic series, and basically, yeah, from like 2009 had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, including DJ Hero, had like 6 games in 1 year.
And they expected you to buy a fucking $400
Guitar
set.
every time. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I didn't realize until I looking at it, like, yeah, like they milked Guitar Hero really fucking quick. Like it was huge for that time frame. We were all there, right?
They
And it was
milked
big.
Guitar Hero, they milked Tony Hawk. Like
Oh yeah. Poor Tony Hawk. Like yeah, that one was rough. They tried milking like Crash and Spyro, but that really didn't work. Um
yeah.
I mean, and they milk Call of Duty, but that still seems to work.
Well,
There's still a lot of milk in that teat.
they get away with that one by having like every developer they have work on it so they can keep up with the demands.
Like they have 3 dev studios just making Call of Duty, so they do one every like 3 years.
But then they also have
Each one gets like a 3-year cycle.
yeah. But then they also have all their side studios just contributing just to make sure that it comes out on time.
Yeah, which is just crazy.
I mean, because
I mean, I really hope that calms down in the future, but I mean, who knows?
unfortunately, it's like Pokemon. They keep selling, so they have no reason to change.
I know. It's like how I feel about, say, like yearly sports series. Like
Yeah.
me, I like the Madden series, and I just wish they would take a fucking break and actually like fix all the problems with it. But there's no fucking need to. Like the audience that they go to, like most of them don't fucking care, and it saddens me, man.
Yeah. So going back to Army Men now, the way this series kind of came to be, I found was really interesting. The whole idea was like they wanted to make like a strategy game very similar to say like Command and Conquer. But they to avoid censorship, they had to kind of get around obviously they couldn't have blood or realistic violence. So they came up with the idea of let's make them little toys and make it like the little toys basically running around on the board because that immediately takes away all of the violence and tones it down to a consumer friendly um, kind of area. And they kind of played around with the idea the farther the series went.
Yeah, like apparently say like with Command and Conquer in certain areas of the world, they would censor it like really hard,
Mhm.
like censor it to the point where they would have to essentially make a whole new version of the game just to appease that audience. And so they were probably thinking, hey, with Army Men, we could just, make it like this brutally violent thing, but they're all just like little plastic toys that everybody knows. Like everybody's familiar with the little green Army Men. So it's something that has an immediate identifiable look to it. And you can make it like brutally violent because, say, if you're a kid playing Army Men, that's probably what you were thinking in your head, anyways. So
Oh, yeah.
it allows for some creativity and sort of like like environmental design and sort of game setup. And it leaves it open to be like so many different genres, which they tackled so many different genres with the series. Like
They sure did.
yeah, like the concept of Army Men as a series does make a lot of sense if you just want something kind of plain that you can experiment within, you know?
Mm.
Like it totally makes sense, you know?
Like the first two Army Men games that were originally released, excuse me, on a PC, they were like straight up real time tactical games, like isometric. They were later also ported to Game Boy Color, and these are actually solid ports. They don't look as nice, but they're basically the same game, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the original Army Men was originally going to be on the M2.
It was on, I believe, I don't know if it actually got into development because the M2 literally like was a thing and then it wasn't a thing very quick.
It might have started development on that, but it could have been like it was closer to like a PC, so it made so they could probably pivot to make it a PC game real quick.
Hmm. It's one of those things where if there was work started, it's either completely gone forever or it's like lost media because I don't think because there is M2 games out there because M2 hardware was actually we'll probably get into it more when we actually do an episode discussing the M2.
Yeah.
But a lot of the M2's hardware was actually used in arcade cabinets that did release to the public.
Yeah,
So there,
and it wasn't like the hardware recycled for like vending machines or something?
I think so. I'd have to relook into that. I think it might have been kind of like the Jaguar in a sense.
But like this never released, so people probably wouldn't know. You know what I mean?
No,
Whereas with the Jag, like seeing that stuff was just incredible.
I'm trying to find one of those dentist things just because I think it'd be kind of funny to have.
It'd probably be less expensive than a Jaguar.
Honestly, yeah.
Apparently, there are like prototypes of the M2 floating around.
It looked cool. It was a cool
It
looking system.
it looks fucking weird though.
Well,
Like
I mean,
I don't,
well,
I mean, it was smart of them to standardize like the top loading thing, but I don't know, it just has like this weird 90s laptop look to it.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, or it's like no, it's like a square PS1. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah,
yeah.
that's what it looks like. It's mimicking that.
I kind of like it. I won't lie, but I then again, I just like that aesthetic. So
That's fair. That's fair. I would have been curious to what the controller would have been.
yeah, it's unknown. Also, apparently, they had basically partnered exclusively with Panasonic by that point, which pissed off Gold Star and everybody to no end.
I mean, they should have did that in the fucking first place, but yeah,
Yeah,
is what it is. Oh yeah, there is a picture of a potential M2 controller, and it looks like a fucked up N64 controller.
yeah.
Have you seen this?
I've seen the one that you're referring to. It's unknown if that actually is an M2 controller or it's just something that they theorized might have been.
I
But it
mean, it
is a
looks like a picture of actually one. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it is a funky looking controller. That's all
Oh
I'll
god.
say.
Yeah, basically just imagine like a weird like third party N64 controller. That's kind of what it looks like. And it looks like it would have been, I mean, hopefully they would have finalized what it looked like because this looks really uncomfortable. Like having like the six face buttons, like a weird analog stick in the middle, then the D pad, and apparently a analog steering wheel like on the outside of the D pad.
Yeah,
Which
kind of
which
like
I
that.
don't know how I feel about that.
It's kind of like do you remember that Mad Catz Xbox 360 joystick they tried making that had the weird
Oh, that fucking piece of shit.
yeah, and it had that weird
Yeah.
scrolly wheel thing around the analog stick because there was a separate analog stick with your joystick.
See, yeah, that's cool because, like, say if you're trying to put like Breakout or like Pong or something like on the live arcade, like that's great for it.
Hmm.
But that's different from like having it like say down here to say you're holding a controller and then you have to like hit this and like do this kind of motion. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like I don't know how like just doing that doesn't feel comfortable.
it was the experimental era of game controllers where they were just trying shit.
Yeah, for real.
Um, So going back to Army Men now, like the first two games were pretty big successes for the most part.
Oh yeah.
The second one more so than the first one. The first one didn't really play with the Army Men gimmick as much as like it honestly could have. They kind of it was like basically they made a Command and Conquer game and then just like stuck Army Men in there just so they could get away with the violence. The second one was more where they really started kind of playing around with the fact that these are toys and we can kind of make a joke out of that.
Yeah, I think it does the thing a lot of the Army Men games do, and that is it'll have a world that's like their world, and then they sort of like transition to say our world. And then our
Yeah.
world is where, like, say they're like fighting on like kitchen tops or in like bathrooms or whatever.
Yeah, like so we'll get into it as we go along, but the Army Men series kind of diverges in half. There is like two storylines going on. There is the realistic storylines based around the first two games, and then there's the Sarge storyline, which becomes its own wacky thing as we go on.
Yeah, like Sarge was their attempt at like a mascot for the series.
Yes.
And
And
I guess it worked because when people think of Army Men, that's probably what they think of as like the Sarge games.
yes, that or they think of this one, Army Men 3D, which may be
Yeah,
the most.
possibly.
This was, I think, the most successful game in the series from what I've read. It's either this or Air Attack. Um, Army Men 3D is interesting because it's actually a 3D remake of the first Army Men game. Only it's a third-person shooter, and it's a little bit. It's kind of real. It's trying to be a little too realistic for its own good at times, which makes it kind of awkward. But it's pretty fun, and you get a flamethrower and you can legit melt the tan army.
See, that's great.
Like that's just violent, and I kind of love it.
I mean, you can get away with it. They're just little plastic things.
Yeah, I mean, this game is fun. It had a really fun multiplayer mode where like you could it was kind of like capture the flag essentially. I remember playing that with my dad and Alex a lot back in the day. Going on from there though, then that's when we get into, of course, the Sarge games.
The beginning, the true beginning. I had the N64 version. Just imagine it here, listeners. And because it was cheap, and I was like, "Oh, that game looks cool." And I gotta say, from what I remember playing of the N64 version, it's not good. It's very slow and clunky and really hard to line up shots and kind of get anywhere. But I get the sense that is more a fault with the N64 than the game itself.
So Sarge's Heroes was a really weird game. The N64 version looked the best, but played weird because the N64's weird hardware problems. The PS1 version played better, but looked like shit because PS1. Then you get the weird best of both worlds where you get the Dreamcast version, which is based off the N64 version, but plays better because of the controller. Um, yeah, Sarge's Heroes is a weird one though, because it's like it's where the series got really fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the back on the screenshots, there's like one of the screenshots is literally Sarge climbing on some toy blocks. Um, it's really the point where like they started this whole like storyline involving Sarge and like the tan army, which was basically the villains of the series. There was also this blue army that was like these like double agents running around. The storyline got really surprisingly complicated for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um, go on.
No, 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 you're good.
Well, I was just gonna say though, like this is like where they got really goofy, like where they would play around with the fact that they're toys, like, and they'd like try to do like slapstick humor in the background during the cutscenes. Like the cutscenes for these games, did the N64 version have cutscenes?
Yes.
Were they full motion video? Or were they kind of like the N64 ish cutscenes?
Yeah, I remember it had them. I don't think there is like a bit crushed as some people might think, because the N64 could run cleaner audio and video than I think people realize. It was only really limited by using the cartridges. But from what I remember, the Sarge's Hero stuff was perfectly fine. but I haven't played that game in a very, very long time because I've got rid of my N64 and that collection many, many years ago. Before I remember, I think it did have cutscenes.
Okay, because the PlayStation version and Dreamcast definitely did. And I love the cutscenes in this series because they literally use like old wartime, like movie tone news clip cutscenes for everything.
Yeah.
And it's charming. Like you could tell they were still trying at this point during the production of the series,
Mm-hmm.
which led to the direct sequel. Well, not really sequel, but another game in the Sarge storyline, and what I consider the best Army Man game made personally, the Air Attack.
Yes, yes. You've told me before that you're quite a fan.
Yeah. So Air Attack takes place in the same universe as like Sarge's heroes. Like Sarge appears in the cutscenes and everything. The whole gimmick with these ones is instead of being like action platformer third person shooter games, they're air combat games where like you do have a bunch of missions and you basically control helicopters. And you just basically you get your objective at the start and you kind of have to go through the level and do it, avoid like enemy fire. It's simple, fun, just nonsense. And this game, like in particular, has held up wonderfully over the years.
I mean, I from what I've seen, people do tend to really enjoy the Air Attack games quite a bit. I've never played them.
I definitely recommend the first one. The levels are hilarious because like you'll go through like one where it's like literally in like the backyard and like you're going through the garden of the family's house that the army men inhabit.
Yeah,
Um, there's another level where like you have to free bugs that the Tan Army has like kidnapped, and whenever you free the bugs, they're like, "We're free," and then they go and attack the Tan Army.
that's amazing.
It's just goofy shit like that. It's charming in like a weird sense.
Yeah, yeah. I get the set. I mean, I feel like that's a summation of the series as a whole. Charming in a weird way.
Yes. Now, moving on, this is where things get a little confusing. So, Army Men 3D was really popular, and a lot of people really wanted basically more of that style and not the weird, goofy, goofy shit that was going on with the Sarge games.
Yeah.
So, 3DO decided to compromise, and they proceeded to release 4 games in the World War series.
Man, they got to 4 world wars. In real life, we only have two.
So, fun fact about these games, they're basically just Army Men 3D again, but like slightly different, and they're barely changed between game. Um,
Man, they didn't
so
even
these
try.
no, they really didn't. These are basically the World War games, and they're essentially if Army Men was trying to be serious, but they're fucking toys, so it's like the illusion is just bad.
Is it the Army Men's like Call of Duty? You know what I mean?
In a sense, but Call of Duty is significantly better in every way.
Yeah, but like you know what I mean, where it's like it's trying to take it seriously, sort of in that sense.
Yeah, it's basically they're trying to actually be like gritty and realistic, but they're still playing as the army men for whatever reason.
It just I don't know how you make that work.
They really didn't because like Army Men 3D is well regarded. The World War games are all just like it's
Trash.
just they're just like half-assed like continuations of that, but without any substance to really make them worth playing.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah, like the Sarge's Heroes games feel like more effort was actually put into them, because in a way it like they have more direction because they can be more silly, you know what I mean? That they can have like more varied like level design and have these like defined characters and try to do something with them where it feels like 3D and the others like they don't have anything resembling like character or like anything to actually give you a reason to stay engaged with what's going on.
so you still play as Sarge in them, but like he's like not the fun Sarge from Sarge's Heroes. He's just
Is it a different Sarge?
it's like the same character, but like he's boring and they don't have any of his like sidekicks or like
Or that
anything.
girl, that lady, what's her
Oh,
name?
What is her name?
You know who I'm
Vicky
talking.
Vicky Green, I think, or
Vicky Green.
No, Vicky Grimm. Vicky Grimm.
See, Vicky Green's a better fucking name.
Well, she's the daughter of like one of the general. It's deep lore, guys. I swear. Um, but yeah, so Sarge's Heroes 2.
I remember it's better. And it was on N64, PS1, Game Boy Color,
And
PS2.
so
I thought it was on Dreamcast.
It was not the only Army Men game on Dreamcast is Sarge's Heroes 1.
Okay, so I probably just get them mixed up.
So it's more of the same. It's more refined. Honestly, more fun. The only thing is the PS2 version. It might be on PS2, but this game was very clearly designed with the N64 in mind, and graphically, it looks like an N64 game still.
Yeah, even on PS2.
Yeah, it's kind of like you ever played Donald Duck Going Quackers?
Yes, I have.
It's kind of like that game on PS2 or GameCube, where it's like it looks nicer, but you can still clearly tell it was a game. It was an N64 game.
Yeah. It's like if you've ever played a lot of those early 360 ports of games like, say, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland or even Gun. It's like they're shinier, like they're running in HD and they're, much, cleaner looking, but it's essentially like taking an old game and running it through an emulator. Like it looks nicer, but the assets are still old assets.
Yes. It's very much kind of like you take a PS1 or N64 game and put it on Dreamcast. It just looks nicer, but it's still very much a PS1 or N64 game.
Exactly.
But speaking of that, we also get Air Attack 2, which to me, I would say is the last good Army Men game, but there's one coming up that we can't forget when we get to it.
Okay.
It's the same thing as Air Attack 1, same idea, just more levels, and it looks slightly nicer. This one was also on PS1 and N64 as well, I believe.
Yeah, the GameCube version of this is the Elite Missions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good game. More the same.
It's the third fucking sub-series in this goddamn thing. Because you have like the World War series, the Sarge's series, and now like the Air Combat series.
So the Air Combat games are technically part of the Sarge series because they have the same plot, but they're just a different style of gameplay.
Okay.
And speaking of that series, we also have Green Rogue.
This game, I don't know why, but this game reminds me of GoldenEye Rogue Agent.
Honestly, I'd rather play that.
And that game's not great either.
Exactly. So this one is essentially forget trying to make a competent like war shooter. Just make it a arcade style shoot 'em up. The kids will love that.
That doesn't seem like a bad idea though. Like this guy in like a Contra game, like sure, why not?
It's not bad. It's just generic, I think is the way to best describe it.
Yeah, like is it well, to be fair, the PS2 Contra games are better than people give them credit for, but Neo Contra and was a Contra Shattered Soldier. Like those games aren't terrible.
The thing about Green Rogue is you play it and you're just kind of like, this is fine. But it's also there's just so many better games of this style on PS2.
Yeah.
It's also like just super ridiculous because it's still part of the Sarge series, but you're playing as this random Green Rogue guy.
Yeah, I don't understand this.
Yeah, it's cheap, so if you find it for cheap, go for it. All right, now
like all these games.
Yeah. Now we get to probably the most infamous and interesting game in this series.
Army Men Advance?
Portal Runner.
Oh yeah, fucking poor. I didn't know this game's existence till like a couple weeks ago.
I didn't know this was an Army Men game until like I bought it until I did a deep dive on the series.
Yeah, this looks like a nightmare.
So it is an action platforming Yeah, that's puzzle
thing.
game. Yeah.
It's a thing.
Um, it looks so. This was like only on PS2. It still looks like an N64 game. Um, it's just mediocre in every way possible. And Trip Hawkins was so upset by the bad reviews that he left a drunken email to one of the review sites threatening to pull advertisement.
That's so funny.
It is like Trip Hawkins is from everything I've read generally seen as a really nice guy, but that's like one of his few like not great moments.
Yeah, this game looks like I don't know why. I'm looking at gameplay of it, and it feels very like that sort of weird run of the mill 3D platformer game, like less of a Mario Sunshine and more of a, I don't know, like a Spyro Enter the Dragonfly?
Blasto, maybe.
Blasto, yeah.
Without Phil Hartman making it worth it.
Yeah, RIP to a legend. Yeah, like yeah, it's closer to like this. Honestly, you could tell me this game was like a Wii shovelware and I would have believed you.
Yeah, it reminds me of that Ninja Bread Man. That's what it reminds me.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of shovelware on PS2. I don't have an official count, but I think there's like 5,000 PS2 games or something crazy like that. And I guarantee you like 20% of that is just bullshit.
Oh yeah.
Like this.
So before we get into the last PS2 game, I do want to divert over to Army Men Advance.
I've played it. It's all right.
It's fun. It's like a top-down shoot 'em up.
Yeah, and those work really well on GBA.
They do. You can play as either Sarge or Vicky Grimm.
Yeah.
Go through a bunch.
Grimm. Ugh.
Yeah. Go through a bunch of levels. It's fine.
If you listeners, if you want a really good top-down shooter for the GBA, I recommend Medal of Honor Infiltrator. Banger of a game. Very hard though.
Yes. And we also there was 2 other Army Men games on GBA. They're not the same as Army Men.
Turf Wars and Operation Green?
Yeah, my favorite names ever. Operation Green and Turf Wars.
You're in the Army Men like gang.
Yeah. So Operation Green and Turf Wars are interesting because they're actually like throwbacks to the original 2 games where they're like isometric. They're not quite real-time like strategy tactics games. They're more like isometric shooters with minor tactical elements, but they're fine for what they are.
Like a Battalion Wars.
Kinda.
If Battalion Wars sucked.
If Battalion Wars was incredibly mediocre, yes.
And it is not. It is not.
It is a very underrated series, I will say.
Fucking love Battalion Wars. What I think like a fan account of Battalion Wars follows me on Twitter.
Nice. What's funny is Operation Green is somewhat well known. Turf Wars, I swear to God, this game is just completely forgotten to time at times.
It doesn't have a Wikipedia article, and all these other fucking games do.
Yeah. Turf Wars also, fun fact, was the final Army Men game to be released under 3DO.
Went out on the banger.
Yeah. Well, you could say the actual final game 3DO put out was a banger, which is also hilarious because they didn't actually make it. RTS.
RTS is a great fucking game. Like
my favorite NBA game.
Why does it have an NBA sticker on it?
This was probably recased at some point, and they just used an NBA case but left the sticker, and I've left it there because I think it's funny.
Okay, fair enough. Just imagine like Draymond Green playing that game, be like, "Damn, this is great. Why don't we have this?" So,
Army Men RTS is literally an RTS on console, and it's a really solid game. And I'm convinced the majority of the reason for that is because of those guys right there.
Beautiful. For audio listeners, Army Men RTS was made by Pandemic Studios. One of the best studios that is dead. Yeah, they originally, it was formed by a couple guys who left Activision. Um and they got acquired by I think, or they got acquired by some like holding company and then were sold to EA. In fact, BioWare was also involved in that as well. And
Hmm.
yeah, and Pandemic Studios is known for games like the Star Wars Battlefront games, the original ones, the two
Destroy All Humans.
Destroy All Humans, Full Spectrum Warrior, fucking Mercenaries, Playground of Destruction, and Mercenaries 2 World in Flames. They even did a Lord of the Rings version of Battlefront called Lord of the Rings Conquest, which is pretty good. And then ended on a game called The Saboteur, which is fine.
Yeah,
I'm not the biggest fan of Saboteur, but it is a very ambitious game that I would have loved to have seen them try again. You know,
hmm.
if you've played it, you know what I'm talking about. It's a gem from that era. But really, me, it's fucking Mercenaries. I love the Mercenaries games to
What's
death.
What's funny is RTS was actually one of their first games too, which is pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It wasn't their first. Their first is some Battlezone 2 Combat Commander thing, whatever. A lot of fucking studios start making tank games. I don't know what's up with that. They made a baseball game for EA, Triple Play 2002, which I've never played. And yeah, Army Men RTS, which I think if it's not considered the best Army Men game, it's up there for sure.
It's
Um,
in the top 5 usually.
yeah, like you can get this game on Steam. I think I got on Steam for like $1.50 or something, and it was more than worth that price. Like it runs pretty well on my machine as well, my fucking laptop. And yeah, it's a great game. I love Army Men RTS. 2 bits.
It's kind of in its own canon, like it's not really attached to the Sarge games at all or the World War boring fest that was.
It
Um,
feels like it's trying to return to the series roots but
but
instead of it having being tactics, it's just like a straight up RTS, like a straight up Command and Conquer game.
mm,
But it's very direct in that it has like, the linear kind of like campaign, and you don't have to be that like strategic with it as far as like the base building and everything. Like you can do that, but there is an element of like more real-time tactics where it's like assemble your group and then go, take out the Tan army kind of thing.
mm,
It finds a way of blending like just straight up combat with the strategy, like base building elements,
yes,
which makes this game very, if you want to get into strategy, like real time strategy games, like this is like a decent kind of starter to kind of
it's
see if you give a shit.
it's honestly one of the best console RTSs ever made. Like
Yeah, it
I
plays
put it
really
up
well on
there.
console.
I put it up there with it's up there with like Pikmin and like Halo Wars is like just like really
Yeah,
good console style RTS
or
games.
even Age of Empires 4,
Hmm.
which originally came on PC, but the console version of it on Xbox is fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Um, and I will say, like for 3DO's last officially released major game, it was a pretty solid way to go out because
Yeah, it has like, I mean, all the Army Men games did not review well. Like their Metacritic scores aren't great,
you
but
look at the
RTS
reviews
is
for
is
them.
one of the higher ones.
You look at the reviews for the Army Men games like in order, and they kind of start pretty decent, and it's like just a slope
Ye-
down.
For real. And it's a shame that this one kind of got sucked in that mixed or average kind of thing. But I think it had to do with it was just in the mold of the time. You have
It
like there was
was
just so many of these games that it probably just felt like they all blended together. And you could only imagine like reviewers being like, I have to review like 3 of these games in 1 year. Like, calm the hell down, guys.
Army Men
Like at
RTS
least
is
Madden does just one a year, you
true.
know?
See, Army Men RTS's biggest downfall was the fact that it was a game based off of a tainted brand by this point.
Yeah, for sure.
And unfortunately, after that, that's when 3DO finally threw in the towel and they filed for bankruptcy and completely fizzled out. Which we will be an episode we'll be discussing way down the line from now, talking about the bankruptcy and closure of 3DO. But the 3DO's assets got kind of shuffled around to a bunch of different studios. Like famously, Might and Magic went to Ubisoft, and they've done fuck all with the series pretty much since.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks, guys.
and Army Men was purchased by a company called Global Star Software, who I think is now part of 2K. Um, They don't exist anymore, though. I know that.
Take Two.
Take Two, yeah.
Yes, known for such games like the PC version of Austin Powers Pinball.
And my favorite crappy racing game ever, Ford versus Chevy.
Ford versus Chevy, like Freddy versus Jason.
developed by the masters behind Ride to Hell Redemption, Eutechnics. So
fucking Christ.
It's funny how you can tie some games.
They did publish Serious Sam: The Next Encounter, which one of the lead designers on the game is Sam Barlow. He had a weird trajectory, man. Like he made that weird game called Isle, which is like considered like a one move game. He was on like Serious Sam, the PS2 Ghost Rider game, did some of the Silent Hill stuff, and is now doing what he's doing now. So weirdly enough, I could connect Sam Barlow to Army Man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So yeah. Speaking of Global Star, though, oh boy. So when they bought the rights to Army Men, they also inherited the last game that 3DO was working on at the time that was unfinished. And that was the final game in the Sarge series, Sarge's War.
There was actually time, which is crazy. Army Men RTS RTS and Turf Wars came out in 2002. And then there was no Army Men game in 2003, which must have freaked some people out. And then in 2004, we got Sarge's War. I've played a bit of this one. People tend to not like this one. I'm honestly not sure why, because what I played of it, I thought it was solid.
So a lot of the dislike comes from the fact that this is literally the Shadow the Hedgehog of like Army Men.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like
I mean, look at that cover. Get a good look at that cover. You know, like that is kind of amazing.
The most notable thing too, right off the bat, is notice that the guns are no longer like plastic; they're made of metal now.
And that's like part of, I think it's part of like the game's storyline, isn't it?
Oh, this game is grim, like very.
Yeah, grim. Yeah, I remember that. Like it is dark.
Spoiler for
I think all your fucking buddies die.
Spoiler for this game if anyone really cares, but Vicky Grimm dies like within like the first mission, and you get one of the most hilarious cutscenes ever. Watch Matt McMuscle's playthrough of this. It is fucking hilarious how fucking stupid this game is.
Yeah, it's fucking weird, man.
Like the violence is so high in this one. Like they actually like you see the characters like blown to pieces, and it's like that wasn't really a thing in the previous games.
It definitely looks like they're finally taking advantage of this generation's hardware.
Yes, that is
this long.
It still looks like shit. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but it's better than the other ones, though. It's already a low bar.
That is true.
Yeah, it doesn't look as bad as it could look. How about that?
I'll say this is better than like Green Rogue or the World War games. Like it's basically just Sarge's Heroes 3. It's better than Portal Runner.
Oh,
but it's still an Army Men game, so the bar isn't super high.
Bro, there's this really nice like banner image, like a decent high quality photo of that cover. Oh, this is beautiful. I'm gonna send it to you real quick. Nice. Like this is nice.
My favorite is you know how you get like the splash like text on the back of the games, and it always has like a big like quote or something.
Yeah.
On the back of this one, it's literally just "It's war."
They're Army Men. It's always war.
But this time it's serious.
I'm just imagining like Shadow the Hedgehog, like that opening cutscene where like Sonic kind of like falls and then Shadow's there and he just like cocks a rifle that's not meant to be cocked, but instead it's Sarge.
And then he karate chops the tan guy in the head. I forget the General Plastro. That's
I want to see Sarge karate chop Robotnik.
This is who I am.
I'm a green plastic man.
So I won't lie, like Shadow the Hedgehog.
With a Jay Leno jaw. Like, what the hell is with that jaw, man?
Yeah. I won't like Shadow the Hedgehog, though. I love this game because it's so fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, for real. Like we will play and review this one eventually. Like he's holding up the Xbox version. Hopefully by next week I have an original Xbox and I will hunt down a copy of this game. And I'm like, you know what? I may beat this with the fucking Duke controller. Let's do it, man.
Like I will
I'm
say,
gonna go nuts.
we will cover a bunch of these individually in the future.
Yes, absolutely. We need to. In fact, we should probably get some guests on for some to play these
Yeah,
crappy games.
we need people to understand Army
Yes.
Men.
Yes, Aaron, if you're listening, pick an Army Men game
This
and you'll
is
be the guest for it. It doesn't
this
matter.
is
It doesn't matter which one he wants to do. We'll do it.
I'm not gonna lie, this is such an Aaron series. I'm surprised if he hasn't played these.
I think he has. He'll let us know because he'll be listening. He'll let us know. It's an Aaron series.
That
I don't
being
know. I don't know if I should be offended for him or not.
I love Aaron, but some of the games that he plays, I'm always like, Aaron, man.
Yeah, but hey, it's fun. Like this is the shit. Like this is kind of the shit we live for when it comes to games. Like finding this weird stuff and being like, what the fuck is this shit? Like everybody knows the big stuff, but it's fun to like dig in and be like, what the hell is this? You know?
Yeah.
Like this is the fun stuff. Like that's what I liked when I was like record collecting, is I would just like find the most like a cover that would just intrigue me. And I'm like, what is this? And then I'd go and listen to it.
That was like me with my CD collection, honestly.
Yeah.
That being said, though, so Sarge's War technically started by 3DO, so it still very much feels like a 3DO Army Men game.
And that like green Xbox case really fits.
I know it does.
Yeah, I love that Mountain Dew green.
Unfortunately, Global Software's first real attempt at it, not nearly as great. And that is Major Malfunction.
What a fucking ironic title.
Which, fun fact, they didn't even make it. They farmed it out to Team 17.
The Worms people?
Yeah, and Team 17.
Why did the Worms team make a fucking Army Men game? They're better. They're better than this.
Well, they clearly just did this for a paycheck because this game is fucking atrocious.
Yeah, like if it was say like Worms but Army Men, that would probably be good.
Like this game, like legitimately, like art stylized. The graphics, they aren't great, but they look pretty decent compared to the rest of the series.
It's gonna be weird seeing that next to my copy of like Splinter Cell.
Oh yeah. This game, on the other hand, what is this art style?
Generic.
You got Samus Aran and RoboCop back there, I guess. I don't Mega Man, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. It was that they recycled Maverick Hunter, which was going to be like the Metroid Prime Mega Man game.
Yeah.
They recycled that guy.
Also, graphically, this game it looks horrendous. Like Sergeant's War looks better.
I've seen this cover like a million times. Like if you go into any like retro game store, you'll find like a handful of these games. But I've never seen this one in action.
It is like the most mediocre shooter like ever made, in all honesty.
I'm looking at it. It just looks so whatever. You know what I mean?
It literally, to me, it's just Team 17 got offered this like for a certain amount of money, and they just did the bare minimum. It's literally just a generic third-person shooter. That's all the game is.
Well, there's no Sarge anymore. Like it's like a new character. I mean, just looking at gameplay of this, like, oh, the motion blur is terrible. It just feels like they're like, oh, we'll just make what people think an Army Men game would be. Like, I get the sense it probably plays okay. You know?
I remember not enjoying it, but
yeah,
I also only played it once, so
yeah. We don't worry, gang. We will find out one of these days.
Now, I don't own the last one because I just don't care. But there was one final Army Men game before the series kind of died.
The fact that this game is part of the series like kind of kills me a little bit.
Basically, after that Major Malfunction flopped, Global Star just kind of gave up, and the series kind of floated in limbo for a while until Zoo Publishing got the rights to it somehow.
Zushi Games.
Yes, that's what they go by now.
No, they're dead.
Oh, well, okay. Fair enough. Yeah, so Soldiers of Misfortune it looks nothing like an Army Men game. It's so out of the they literally just bought the naming rights and just kind of went with something.
Yeah, like Soldier of Misfortune, it honestly looks like Major Malfunction, like gameplay wise, but with like a different art style. Where for some reason now you're like a kid, but like it's fucking weird. Like it looks like, say, Major Malfunction, but instead of a little army men going through this like big oversized like bedroom, it's instead like a kid, just like a
Yeah,
real ass kid with a
who's like
fucking
shrunk down and like is
yeah, like
playing.
yeah, honey, I shrunk the army men. Like what is this? Like
I
it came out on the Wii, which our listeners, if you've ever been to a retro store and looked through the Wii games, you probably have seen this one. It also came out on the DS
and the
and the
PS2.
PS2. A lot of Wii games came out on the PS2.
So fun fact about this game, I completely didn't even realize it was part of the series. And the only reason I found out about it was actually Scott the Woz did his Wii Shovelware Variety Hour series, and this game was part of that. And I was
Did
like,
he play this as part of that?
yeah, he couldn't beat the first level.
Okay, because he had the 3 parts, right?
Yes.
Okay, it must have got mixed in there because I don't remember him playing this one. Like, actually, I bought one game purely based on his review of it, and that was Mercury Meltdown Revolution.
Oh,
Because
I
he's like,
fucking love.
it was actually good. What the fuck? And I've played it. It is actually like really good.
I have the one on PSP. I play the hell out of it.
I almost bought Pizza Delivery Boy. I saw it somewhere, but it was $20. And I'm like, am I going to pay $20 for this game? No.
I mean, if I ever see Ninja Bread Man like on a shelf for like nothing, I'll grab it just to have.
That I get that rock and roll Elvis one.
Or the Sphinx 2 or whatever.
I mean, they're all the same game.
They really are.
Yeah, but yeah, Soldiers of Misfortune, that looks nasty. I don't. I would feel so dirty playing that game.
Oh, we didn't talk about Toys in Space. Not that it
Well,
matters.
was that part of the original line
So
of like
that
tactics games?
yes, it came out after 3D, but it was still part. Actually, no, it came out after Sarge's Heroes as well.
But this is like the worst one, right?
Yeah, it got too like fantastical, like with like the aliens and space and stuff, and it was just it lost kind of like the charm of the original two, and it was just kind of like it just didn't need to it really didn't need to happen.
Gotcha.
It's got a 29% on game ranking, so that's all you need to know.
Rough.
There was also Army Men Air Tactics, which was a tactical based version of the Army Men Air Attack games that came out on PSP. Yeah, PSP, yeah. PC.
Could you imagine?
I'd have played it, but
I'm just imagining like a Sarge's War 2 on the 360. That would have been a nightmare.
that would have been something.
No, it would have.
Apparently, it was just like it was a tactical kind of game like the first two games, but they incorporated the helicopters and stuff into it. Reviews don't look great, so your mileage may vary on that. And then other than that, since Soldiers of Misfortune, we've gotten Mobile Ops and Toy Wars,
Toy Wars.
both of which are mobile games that I don't think exist anymore. So,
And apparently there is a fan game called Army Men 3, which is
yes.
based on the first two. I don't know if it ever got finished.
No, it was canceled, but they left the engine. They basically left it open source. So if anyone wants to finish it, go for it, I guess.
Yeah, if you want to dig through it. And I looked at the page for it, and its last update was March 2nd of last year, and it's had no downloads this week. And I'm like, should I just so they get one and wake somebody up? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then immediately delete it because I'm like, what am I supposed to do with all these assets? Yeah, I don't know what I would do with these assets, but
yeah, that was
it's a neat idea, but
I remember when it was first announced and they were actually working on it, it was kind of interesting, but then like it just disappeared and I was like, I wasn't that interested.
Fair enough. See, I would do a Sarge's Heroes 3 or something like that. That'd be funny.
Well, we kind of got Sarge's Heroes 3.
Oh shit, that's right.
Um,
Sarge's Villains.
Sar- Sarge Resurrection.
He's back, and this time he's mad.
Yeah.
If you know that quote, I'll give you $1.
So yeah, that's the Army Men series though. It is literally like the perfect example of like milking a franchise into the ground and essentially imploding your entire company.
Yeah, in like the worst possible way of like milking a franchise. Like a lot of these other companies have like gotten milking a franchise down to a science, man. Like Call of Duty and a lot of the EA sports games. Like they have it down to a science to where it's like, yeah, they're milking it, but like we know, everybody knows. I mean, hell, you could argue that like Mario is milked to death. You could make that argument because they just constantly are making Mario shit, but the quality is much higher.
Th-
You know,
That's the key because not only did they milk Army Men, but they also oversaturated the market with these games.
and they just got worse and worse. They never improved.
They didn't put the effort into making complete games. Like you'd get one every now and then that was pretty good, like Air Attack 2. RTS. Well, RTS doesn't really count because that wasn't made by them.
It's in the family.
It's in the family. That one you can understand why it's good though, because it was literally uh, handled by someone else who had all the time in the world to make it.
Yeah.
Not by one studio that was like spread thin on like 12 games plus some Might and Magic shit and whatever else 3DO was working on at the time.
Exactly. You can tell it was made by a studio that was hungry and like ready to like prove to the world that they could actually like make some like high quality games, which they eventually did. And
Yeah.
then got killed because EA sucks.
See, to me, I always wonder like maybe if they just like didn't do all the World War games because those are pointless. No one asked for the. Well, apparently people did ask for those, but like no one needed those. They focused solely on like the Sarge's Heroes and Air Attack games and like made like one a year. They could have arguably probably lasted longer.
Yeah, they probably would have.
Apparently, 3DO wasn't doing great though, and that's one of the one of the reasons why they forced so many of these out is because they were desperate for money.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shame because 3DO did have some winners. Like there was a series called Battle Tanks, which we're going to cover at some point in the future.
Yes,
and
we need to get Quest 64 on that because he's a big Battle Tanks guy.
and those are some actual decent games 3DO made during their third party days. 3DO also made the first massive MMO, which is still apparently active with private servers. Not something I'd ever play now, but it's something interesting.
They fucking made that?
Meridian 95, yeah.
That's weird as hell.
That's what I'm saying. 3DO is a weird company. But yeah, that's Army Men. Play these games. Play these games at your own risk, I guess. I mean, I will recommend the first two: Air Attack, RTS, maybe the Sarge's Heroes games if you're feeling
risque,
risky, I guess. You're feeling brave.
From what I've played of the series, I highly recommend RTS. I think it's a fantastic game. Like if you're a big real-time strategy person, you'll probably think it's kind of like primitive. But if you're trying to get into them, I can't think of a better way to get into them without it being like overwhelming. Like I have a soft spot for Sarge's War, probably just because it's kind of silly. And I just feel like like gameplay wise, it felt like an improvement from Sarge's Heroes 1 and 2. But it could have been just I was playing it on better hardware. Outside of that, fuck, I don't know. Play the air games, I guess, because people seem to like the air attack ones. But yeah, eventually it'll probably be like a sub series for us where we will go through each of these games and talk about them in some kind of detail. Because I'm sure these games deserve to be fine tooth combed. Like somebody needs to do it, and I think it's going to be us. And then we'll find out about the secret army men cult, who will get mad at us for not being able to appreciate how cool these games are.
Do you remember that review like we found online last time? That was like the guy like ranking them, and his list was so fucking bad. It wasn't even funny.
Yeah, we did that off stream or off show.
Yep, because
it was amazing.
He had some of the most questionable games in his top 5. That's for sure.
It was on Giant Bomb's website, because I think Giant Bomb back in the day used to prioritize a lot of like user-based content, so you could just make random crap on there. And some dude ranked all the Army Men games, and the little descriptions he had for them were hilarious and completely inconsistent. Like his reasoning for stuff was all over the place.
He put Portal Runner above the air attack games, and I was like, I was like, what?
Like, die. You almost went Sarge's War on him.
Just that scene of Sarge fucking screaming in the air. Just play that over and over.
Sarge is unleashed.
Oh man! Basically, the scene after he discovers Vicky died, just like it's him screaming in the air. It's like the greatest fucking trash ever.
I've seen it. It's amazing.
Oh yeah!
Can't wait to play that game again.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to revisiting a bunch of these because they are fascinating.
Yeah. We need to do it. So what better podcast to do this?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to covering more of the post console 3DO games because like they're interesting.
Yeah, I can only do so many just straight up 3DO games before I lose my mind. You know, it's like I need to play some fucking actual games.
Yeah. Oh boy. But yes, next I think we agreed that next time we were gonna do the Horde, I think.
Yes, we will do the Horde.
Which I'm looking forward to. That's a Toys for Bob game, and I love Toys for Bob.
As do I. And I actually have a physical of it, kiddos. Yeah, I had to I don't know if it's the PAL version or not, but I literally ordered it from some dude in Greece who was selling it for like a decent price, and it showed up very quickly for an international package. And it works just fine. I put like an hour into it, so I will reserve my thoughts for now.
I'll be playing the Saturn version just because I don't have the 3DO version at the moment, but
it is an expensive game. Like I think I got it for like $40-$50, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah. Now, we should honestly do a Toys for Bob episode at some point too, because they're
hell yeah.
They're an interesting developer.
Yes, they are. And I cannot wait to see what they have up next. Spyro 4. I can't wait.
Yeah. But what? Enter the Dragonfly? That already came out.
They'll probably reference it.
Yeah, like they did in Crash 4.
Crash 4. They're like, wait. Where they're like, wait, we fought each other more than 3 times, right? What do you mean?
Well, especially because Wrath of Cortex is literally Crash 4 in Japan.
Yeah. It's fine. It's a fine game. It's okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's Traveler's Tale, so it's average.
I mean, they also made Twin Sanity, and that's a great game. So.
Twin Sanity has that really cool gimmick to it, which I think helps that game stick out. And it has an amazing, for some reason they did like a whole acapella group soundtrack.
Spiral Mouth. Fucking love them.
Yeah, but it's fucking good. Like, goddamn. Like giving that game to like a 9-year-old me was quite an experience.
Even though it's painfully unfinished, which is very apparent.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, like it starts out really strong, but I think it's somewhere in the second half where you're like, oh man.
You play it now and you notice a lot of things are like, but it's still it's finished enough to be playable, and that's matters.
Yeah, you can beat the game. Yeah. And I hope, I mean, there's no guarantee, but it'd be really sweet if that game became backwards compatible in the series, but because it's Activision and Microsoft owns them now, but who knows about that? I mean, maybe in June we'll learn something about all these like Activision games, like if they're coming to Game Pass or if they're going to make them more backwards compatible. I have no idea. That'd be nice to see, but we got a couple weeks.
The director of Twin Sanity actually reached out and said that like if at the time, if Activision, but maybe Microsoft gave the okay, he'd love to finish the game.
That'd be great. Like imagine like a remaster.
Oh yeah,
That'd be great. Like hell, give that to Toys for Bob. Like get him to like team up with Toys for Bob and be like, hey, let's get that source code and let's finish it.
oh yeah.
That'd
I
be
would love
awesome.
that.
That would be fucking cool. Because I know like the Crash fandom like has a pretty deep love for Twinsanity. Because it's one of the few post Naughty Dog games that people tend to really like.
They got Steve-O and Chris Pontius to do ads for that game.
Oh yeah, I've seen
They
that.
would
I saw
they'd
them on I saw
reenact
them on
all
YouTube a couple
yeah,
years back.
they'd reenact the stunts you could do in the game. It was great.
It was that era. So yeah,
Yeah.
the Crash, another weird series.
Yeah, honestly. Not as bad as Spyro in terms of like what he went through, but it was pretty rough still.
Yeah, the Crash Bandicoot I think has a higher batting average than Spyro, but I will always prefer Spyro.
True. Well, I mean, Hero's Tale was like the game that was advertised
Love
along.
I fucking love Hero's Tale, man.
It's good. It's not I mean it's not broken like Enter the Dragonfly, so that's
No, no. Again, Hero's Tale, I got to Insanity and Hero's Tale around the same time. And both those games, I'm like, fuck yes, these games are great. You know, I haven't played Hero's Tale in a long time though. Like I haven't played it since I don't know, like 2007 or something. So
it holds up. I
yeah.
wouldn't say it's a masterpiece. Like obviously the Spyro trilogy, like
Who made it? Oh, Eurocom made it. So it's probably good.
Jess Harnell voice is Spyro's voice, and it's weird.
Yeah, and Enter
But
the Dragonfly was two studios who don't have a Wikipedia page.
oh, Equinox and Slant
Check
Six,
six.
Check Six. Although Check Six, I believe, was the main developer. Equinox. I think Matt McMuscle said in his "What Happened," like nobody really knows what the fuck Equinox did during that game.
They ruined it. That's probably what they did.
I mean, the Holiday Rush is what ruined that game, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but Hero's Tale is really cool, and it was Eurocom, and R.I.P. Eurocom was a great dev.
But yeah, so once again, guys, thanks for joining us on the 3DO Experience. The 3DO Experience can be found on all the major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also find us on YouTube with video versions, I guess. And
Hi.
if you can find all of our links at Linktree/The Barberhood Games, and you can join us at the GNC Podcast Network Discord server, where you can find all things GNC, 3DO Experience, Geek Addicts, Talk Gaming, Anime, or just general nonsense. And Thrax streams on Wednesday nights, which is tonight. So you can find his streams down below there at twitch.tv/Thrack94.
Well, I am currently on hiatus. You didn't read my Twitter. But yeah, so I'm just taking a little break from streaming right now, just so I can get like, career stuff figured out.
Gotcha.
But the VODs are still up on Twitch. They're also on my YouTube at Thrack94. If you want to watch those, you should watch them. Tell your friends. Get those. Follow me on Twitch, man, so I can get to 50 followers and be an affiliate. That's all I'm missing. But I will return at some point. I just need to get some like real life stuff kind of figured out. And then once I get that squared away, I will come back to streaming, because streaming is a lot of fun, but I just don't really have the mental capacity for it at this current stage.
Gotcha.
So, but it will return. I do promise.
Nice. Well, the link's down there anyways. So if anyone would like to check those out, it is very easy to find.
Yeah, I just have ice. I don't have any water. Shit.
The struggle is real.
And
with that, everybody, we will see you all later.
Bye-bye.